Well, hey, church family, I hope all of you are doing well. I can attest that the seasons are officially changing because my sinuses are going haywire and I don't feel good. So be praying that today is Tuesday, so be praying that by Saturday all of that will have gone away and that I will feel fine and I will be able to talk. Because right now my vocal cords just I kind of sound a little raspy. But anyway, so, but today we are continuing in our going through different Psalms about stuff, and so I think that I'm going to continue through the Psalms through September. And then when we get to October, then I'll switch back to what I was doing 6 months ago. It's hard to believe that I've been recording lessons for 6 months on Tuesdays and Wednesdays now, going through Psalms, but we'll be getting back to the book of Hebrews, and so I think that's what we were going through. I probably should have looked that up before I said all that anyway. But today we're going through Psalm 46, and Psalm 46 has two main parts, and verses 2 through 6 are a theophany, which is a visible manifestation of God, and so we will be looking at how God revealed himself, and then verses 8 through 10 are an oracle, and then sandwiched kind of in there as a beginning, middle, and then at the end we have a confession. And so that first confession in verse 1, God is our refuge and strength, a very pleasant help in trouble. And so with this first confession, we see that God is our refuge and He is our strength. And I don't know how many times we have, in our going through the Psalms over the last 5.5 months, how many times someone has said that. But it is a theme, and that's why we're doing this, because we need to remember that God is our refuge. That is, He is where we need to hide. He is, on Him we should be leaning. And He is where we should put our trust. And we shouldn't lean on anything else in our own lives. And when I know that when we're having a bad day or a stressful day, or we're in a bad mood, or just ugh, like I feel right now, but we can't go to something other than God to help us get us through. And because when we try to use something other than God to help get us through what it is that we're going through, then we start over here, and then we use that thing and we get to here, but once that thing goes away, then we're right back here where we were. So that thing, that's just a temporary help for us, but when you use God and we're here, but then God will give us strength and get us permanently through what it is that we're going through, not just something temporary, using an idol to go through and get, because those things are going to be temporary and it will just get us right back. So, but the whole time, if we had just trusted in God, then depended on Him, then we'll get all the way through, and He will get us through because He is our strength. And so then that second part there, He says, a very pleasant help in trouble. And so I'm just going what I was going along through there. He will help us get through whatever it is that we are going through. And then in verse 2, therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change and though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains quake at its swelling pride. Selah. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy dwelling place of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She will not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. The nations made an uproar. The kingdoms tottered. He raised his voice. The earth melted. So, because in verse 1 he helps us, in verse 2 we don't need to fear. The earth changes. The mountains slip into the sea. But we still don't need to fear because God is in control. And during this whole pandemic, we continue to have lots of uncertainty, but we don't need to fear. Should we be cautious? Yes. But we don't need to be afraid. And Satan wants us to be afraid because being afraid during this pandemic, being afraid at any time, keeps us focused on ourselves and makes us worry, and we only think about, okay, what can I do to make me safe? When we need to be focused on God and how He can keep us safe. And it says, even though the waters roar and foam and the mountains quake, we know that God is in control and there is no need to fear. So use our brains, but don't be afraid. Then he says, Selah. So, and Selah is used as a word so that we will pause and we will think about what was just said. And so pause and think of God and think how when we stay with Him, there's no need to fear. And then in verse 4 we see a refreshing river come into the city of God, a wonderful, refreshing river. And God is there taking care of His people. So He's taking care of Israel. And nations would come up against Israel, but God would raise His voice. God would raise His voice, and the earth would melt. So God continued to save Israel. So, and today He continues to save us. Now, were there times in Israel's history where He needed to get their attention? Yes. Are there times now where God needs to get our attention? Yes. Let us go through and depend on Him because He loves us. And then in verse 7, the Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Selah. So God is with us. He is our stronghold. He is our refuge. He is our place where we need to go and depend on Him. And then in verse 8, come, behold the works of the Lord, who has wrought desolations in the earth. He makes wars to cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. He burns the chariots with fire. Cease striving, or be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. So then in verse 8, come and look at what God has done. He has brought past destruction to the earth. He makes wars to cease, wars to stop. And God defeats weapons of war. There is no weapon that can stand up against God. There is no weapon that can attack him. So then in verse 10 it says to cease striving, be still and know that I am God. God is God. We don't need to worry. And with God in control, what is it that we have to worry about? Nothing. We don't need to worry about anything because He's in control. Now do we worry? Yes. But as soon as we start to worry, we need to go to Him and we need to say, Lord, I am worrying about this. And when we do that, when we go to Him, that He will go and He will help those worries to go away. He will bring a calm and a peace to us because we are leaning on Him. We are putting all of our worries we are putting on Him. One of the verses that we're going to go over on Sunday is Psalm, Philippians 4:6. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So, when we get to that point where we are worrying, when we're anxious, let us go to Him. And He will bring us great comfort. Verse 11. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Selah. So finally, the Lord is with us. We don't need to worry about anything because God is with us. He loves us. He is our stronghold. Let us put our faith and trust in Him.